So, welcome to our first live stream in a long time, number one. And number two, also welcome to the Quickstart Bootcamp if you're just joining us. These live streams, which you may be watching in retrospect, are here to give you some additional pointers, some additional coaching, and to cover some really key distinctions. Think of them as keys that go in certain locks in the door of getting your coaching business rolling, taking action, and making the startup process that you're after actually happen, especially within the boot camp, but obviously you can apply it outside the boot camp if you choose to. So, I'll give you a little bit of introduction into why I'm doing this. Every challenge that you face, every barrier that you deal with in your business, or if, for that matter, every barrier that your clients deal with, each of those has solutions that are available to you or available to your client, and these solutions obviously take different forms. But what I've found is that the common issues that we face, the common challenges that seem to keep us stuck, stop us from getting started, stop us from taking action, stop us from being effective in our sessions or in our life, that there's not that many of them. There's maybe 10 or 20 of these, and obviously you can get more complex and see how all the intricacies occur. But the bottom line is there's not that many of them. And as another side to it, there's not that many key distinctions that you need in order to unlock those doors, in order to get past those challenges as well. So in these live streams, and I'm only doing this in the Quickstart Bootcamp Facebook group, if you're on Facebook, and on live stream on YouTube, and those will be taken down if you're attending on YouTube immediately when I'm done. But I'm sharing these with you because these are what I've seen our students and clients face, these kind of challenges, kind of issues. And if I can give you these distinctions and keep it as simple as humanly possible in a principle or a truth or an understanding, then you, if you apply that, can instantly get your power back. You can instantly become, as they would call it, unstuck, right? So each day, for the next 5 days before our boot camp starts, you're going to be receiving these distinctions from me in this form. And then as we begin the boot camp, I'm going to be continuing these starting on day one. So this is the T minus 5 days countdown to your boot camp beginning on Monday. We'll take Sunday off, so this will go Tuesday through Saturday. So today, our first distinction, our first organizing principle that I'm covering with you is, hopefully you can see it. I know it's kind of probably backwards on YouTube, so I apologize for that. I need a mirror image of this because YouTube likes to reverse everything. But it's called completion versus perfection. Completion versus perfection. And I learned this initially, this distinction I learned from a partner of mine who originally was kind of a mentor. I met this guy. First time I met him, I was sitting in coaches training with Tony Robbins. It was the year 2000. So what is that? 20 years ago now. It's amazing that we've made it this far. And Tony brought in some of his top trainers to train us in different aspects of what he provides, so that we knew what people were learning when they were working with Tony. And so he brought in this guy named Eric, and Eric was training all of Tony's top speakers at that point. And we found out later that he was like the top performing speaker that was working for Tony for a while, and he left and he started his own business. He came back to be a consultant for Tony Robbins, and so one of the things that he did was he led this training that day, and he was taking us through all of Tony's like influencing tools, his basic kind of what he called competitive edge tools. Tony had a one-day seminar called Competitive Edge. Tony wasn't going to run it for us. We were only 40 of us in training, and so he brought in Eric to cover that. So his name is Eric Lofholm, very well-known sales trainer at this point. Not as well known as he should be. He's probably one of the better kept secrets in the sales training industry, but you can look him up and he's got some phenomenal distinctions and he keeps things very simple. So, but I heard this from him, not that day when we were in training with Tony, but years later when I started partnering with Eric. He has this distinction called, as it says here, completion versus perfection. And Eric would always say, focus on completion, not perfection. And the point of this was very simple. It's actually, this is one of the big locked doors, one of the big things that keeps people stuck, from getting something started, which is that they have this perfectionist need, this need to, or this desire to do things perfect the first time. And of course, we know that that never happens. That's the least likely thing to happen, is that the first time you do something, it's perfect. Like, this never happens. I mean, if it does happen, you got lucky, or you're a savant of some sort. You're a prodigy, and we know that it's very seldom either of those things actually occur. So we know that perfection, just the first time around, it ain't gonna happen, right? And yet, how many of us try to execute something the first time and make it perfect? Right? How many of us actually expect that or vie for that? I know personally some of our students that just got started with us, like, we'll tell them, hey, like the other day, somebody commented on one of our trainings, and the training was all about go out and coach people, run sessions, and whether or not they sign up for coaching with you, you're going to get better, you're going to add value, you're going to get referrals, you can rinse and repeat, and eventually you're going to start getting clients, and you're on your way. And so this gentleman responded to this suggestion, and he said, nice for you, but I'm not going to ruin my reputation by going out there and coaching before I am the perfect coach. I need all the training and all the certifications first. I need all that handled. In fact, you might have seen Chris Thompson's latest video on our channel about getting started as a life coach before you get certified, like without certification. He really gets into this distinction around not completion versus perfection, but people thinking that certification is somehow going to give them the confidence or the permission to just get started, just to try and help somebody. And yes, there are fears around doing something wrong, for sure. But the bottom line is, there's this expectation that this gentleman had to do it perfect the first time. Right? And he was really convinced of this. And I know to this day, unless we can really help him, he's going to stay stuck. And no matter how many things he learns, or no matter how many trainings he goes through, he's never getting started. Like, that's not going to happen. I already know that individual their business is dead on arrival, as far as I can tell. Okay, so this is really the death of results for you if your standard is perfection. And I remember, you hear this a lot. If you haven't heard this already, you probably haven't seen a lot of Tony Robbins, but Tony Robbins always likes to say that perfection as a standard, like people say, I'm a perfectionist, I have a really high standard. And he'll automatically just say, no, you have no standard at all. You have the lowest standard possible. You have zero standard. Because the expectation of perfection is the expectation of the impossible. And therefore, if you say perfection is your standard, you're not only lying, because that can't be possible, or you're in fantasy, basically, but outside of that, we already know you don't have any standards, because you set the standard of perfection to make it so that you can't possibly have any standard to do anything. It keeps you stuck, it keeps you out of action, it keeps you from getting started, and therefore perfection is the lowest standard possible, i.e. no standard at all. So that's perfection as a standard. It's really important when you say, I'm into perfection, I'm a perfectionist, I have a really high standard of perfection, that you stop lying to yourself, that you get clear that perfection is not a standard. You don't have any standards. And so if you say that, then just understand that's a lie. You gotta stop lying to yourself about that, because you are going to stay in a zero standard. Like, that's even worse than mediocrity. At least if you're a mediocre coach or a mediocre business person or a mediocre whatever it is that you want to become, you're actually that. Having a perfection standard for that means that you don't get it at all. Like, you're never going to be that. you exclude yourself from that even being possible. So it's really death. That's perfection as a standard. Now, completion, however, this is where Eric comes in, and how Eric used to talk about this. Completion means that you actually make progress. You completed something. It ain't perfect. It's not great. There's all sorts of issues about it, but you actually get, you hit the ball with the bat. You actually take one step forward. You dive into the water and try to swim. You do that first coaching session, right? Like it gets completed. And you can look back on it and laugh at yourself or make fun of yourself or feel kind of sad that it didn't go as well as you would like, or get excited that you actually got it done. I mean, that's up to you. Like that's the human emotion of completion. We just go through whatever we go through. But it actually causes a result. And then you actually are on the playing field, which means now you have a standard. You've actually set a standard for yourself, right? So that's completion. Completion, the benefit of completion is that it leads to what you want. Now, it's not what you want. Just completing something, at first at least, is not going to produce the result you want, chances are. But it'll lead there. It actually makes what you want possible because now you're making progress towards what you want. So it leads you to what you want, because if you complete one thing and then you still have that as a standard, I'm going to keep completing and completing and completing, eventually you'll reach the standard that you really have, or at least lead to you getting what you're after, right? So that's the benefit of completion. So if your standard is completion, you ultimately can get what you want. If your standard is perfection, then really you're lying to yourself and you have no standard at all. Okay, so perfection leads to nothing. Completion leads to what you want. Neither will give you what you want initially, right? I mean, unless it's just something that's so easy to do that you probably already have achieved it. You already experienced that in your life. We're talking about like extraordinary things that you really have, it's going to take something to get there. That's what I'm talking about here. So now in the Quickstart Bootcamp, if you're in the Bootcamp, if you're in the YouTube channel, you're maybe not be familiar with this, but we're running the Bootcamp right now where a ton of new coaches are getting their businesses started. And so we set this standard of completion versus perfection, but we haven't really talked about it as of yet. So that's why I wanted to bring this to the table for you. And the first way we handle this is that we make sure that in the boot camp, you're taking action now, not waiting for someday. The boot camp happens over a period of 30 days. When it's over, it's over. The game ends, right? So you can win the game, you can lose the game, but you can't perpetuate the game forever. I mean, you can run more games, right? But the game has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so the purpose of that is to, for urgency's sake, have you get on the court and complete something. There's no someday in the Quickstart Bootcamp. There's just today and what you're going to produce during this short period of time. So we're going after short-term outcomes, short-term goals, not someday maybe type of goals. We're getting something completed today. We also have this, we talked about earlier in the orientation, this playful out checklist. And some of the items in here are just like getting on the court and actually doing something, but some of the other items are a matter of playing full out with what you can do at the moment. And these are the simplest standards you can have in your coaching business, but they're also the most important as well, no matter how far you go in your business. So we have measurements or games that you can play, like prospecting for clients, like actually talking to people and asking them to run sessions with you, right? I mean, it's one of the simplest things. Any idiot can do that. You don't have to be an amazing coach, right? You just do it. We have another game of running sessions, like actually running coaching sessions for free, no transaction, just giving something to somebody with no expectation of anything, right? And obviously you can ask them to sign up for coaching with you, and then getting new paying clients and things like that. But these are immediate results that someone can produce if they're willing to just go after it on an immediate basis. And so that playful out process, the checklist that we use and the reporting, every single week you have a chance to report at the end of the week how you did. That's an immediate thing. Like you can't report on that someday in the future. You can't report on that without having done something. I mean, obviously you can report that you got zeros, but you got to do something now in order to actually play that game, like at least play it full out. And that's the purpose of this idea of completion. You completed something. You spent an hour prospecting. You got a client. You set a free session, or you ran a free session. These are simple things that are measurable results that anyone can produce today. And I'll tell you, have running a six-figure coaching business with multiple team members and coaches that work under me, seeing and consulting for multi-million dollar coaching business. Guess what? They have to produce those same results on a regular basis. So don't think this is oversimplifying what we're talking about, this playful out process. Don't think that, oh, well, I don't have to do that because I'm going to do everything online. I know multi-million dollar online coaching business. I help build them. I consult for them. I coach most of their team members. And guess what they're doing? Guess what there's a coach that she sold $5 million worth of coaching in 2019. I personally coach her. She's on the team of a coaching business that did $5 million in 2019, something in the ballpark of that. Let's put it that way. And she did 1/5 of all the sales for these coaching packages that they sell. And guess what she does? She goes to she flies into town. She gives a presentation at a school. She's on the adult ed calendar in that school, and so people can sign up for her one-time class. She gets contact information and sets up sessions with the people that go through the class, and then the next few days she runs coaching sessions. These are little 15-minute coaching sessions. I mean, they're not advanced things, but she's very good at generating rapport and being influential and sharing the benefits that the program provides. She made $1 million last year, or not. She didn't make herself $1 million, but she generated $1 million in revenue, coaching revenue last year from doing that. Now she worked a lot, she put in the hours. I know how hard she worked, but what did she do? She did the same things that we have on the Playful Out checklist. Hey, Yvonne. Hey, Curtis. Also, thanks for being on Facebook with us on this first T-5 days live stream in the boot camp. All she did is run sessions. She's just prospecting, running free sessions, signing people up for coaching. That's it. So whether you are a $5,000 a year coaching business or a zero, or you're a $5 million a year coaching business, it's the same stuff. It's the same game you're playing. You just play it better. You play it with more people. You play it with more leverage. I've got some leverage here. I'm talking to 3 individuals on Facebook right now and a couple on YouTube, right? And then more people see the video when we share it in the next boot camp, right? So great, that's more leverage, but I'm still talking. I'm still using English or whatever language. I'm still sharing distinctions. I'm still adding value. I'm still coaching. I was doing this the first day I started my coaching business. I continue to do it. I want to do it better. Want to do it with more people. That's it. The game is the same. So you can start that game today. And, for the boot camp, the game hasn't started yet. We still got a few days to go. But when you start on Monday, it's go add some value. Do a live stream like this. Talk to people, prospect, sign them up for a free session. It's they can't really lose. It's not going to hurt them. Especially if they're a friend or a loved one or somebody who trusts you and you have some rapport with already and have some with already. It ain't rocket science, right? And if you just go after the fancy methods of trying to get a lot of leverage and doing tons of social media or going online first and all that, look, there's nothing wrong with that. But the challenge with that is that you might miss just completing something, and you might just go after trying to do something perfect in the future someday. And that is the Antichrist in the boot camp here. What we're after and what we really want to worship at the altar of is complete something today that equals something in a coaching business where I can repeat the process, I can learn from it, I can get better at it, and someday I can leverage it like crazy, and I can scale up as far as I can possibly imagine. Because that journey never ends. But you got to start that journey. and perfection stops you from starting, if you will. Hope that makes sense. So yeah, I just emailed it out, so you should be in good shape. We just got started 10 minutes ago. So this completion versus perfection plays out in the boot camp by us playing full out, by us checking off that we did these things and reporting how they went, reporting how many sessions we ran, how many hours we spent talking to people. It's just we're just check the numbers and see what we're up to, not quality. We're not talking about how well did you do, like how perfect were you. We're talking about quantity first. That's part of completion, is just, did I get on the court? Did I actually show up for practice today? Completion, not perfection. So in the reporting of the stats and the measuring of the stats, what wins in the boot camp is not necessarily doing everything perfect. What wins in the boot camp, whether those individuals are going to be in the winners panel at the end of the boot camp, where we really grill the top performing coaches on how they did what they did, those are the ones that the most time talking to people, that ran more sessions than anybody else, not because they're better coaches. Now they'll get better because they're on the court, right? But it's just them getting base hits, not doing something perfectly. Final way in the boot camp that you can engage in if you're in this boot camp, that we'll support you with, outside of everything I've already covered, to really support this distinction of completion versus perfection, completing rather than focusing on completion rather than focusing on perfection, is that we provide accountability every single week of the program. So in our first week of the program, you have a chance to commit to one thing that you know you won't complete it unless you commit to it. And you've got the peer pressure, if you want to call it that, of the entire student body in the boot camp, like all the others that are attending live, because next coaching session, you're going to have to let us know if you follow through or not. And sometimes the answer is no. It doesn't look good. It doesn't even necessarily feel good, although it doesn't have to feel bad. It's that engagement of saying, I know what I need to do. I know I want to do it perfect, but instead I'm committing just to get it done. And it ain't gonna be pretty necessarily, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like, that commitment is just like the world changes on that commitment, right? So that's accountability. That's actually being willing to hold your feet to the fire. Yeah, quantity is what a lot of times those commitments deliver, not quality, not doing it perfectly. Usually, no, I don't see anybody in the boot camp committing to do a perfect coaching session. You know, become a perfect coach, build a perfect, like nobody, like not even close to that, right? Because they know better. I mean, they're smart enough to realize that I don't need accountability around that, because that's a someday, maybe never type of thing. It's a quantity game, not a quality game. Quality, that's going to follow if you're on the court. Why? Part of the reason why is because you care. And when you're on the court and you're playing and you're not like winning, it's gonna bother you. You know, you're gonna say, what am I doing wrong? How do I fix this? How do I turn this around? How do I make it better? Like, these are the kind of questions that someone on the court asks. Somebody that is not on the court, who's just focusing on perfection, it keeps them stuck. They're not asking those questions. I'm not saying they don't care. They're just, that's never gonna come up for them, right? So accountability is a place where you can engage in this area in the boot camp. So I invite you and encourage you to do that. The other place where we cover accountability that's going to support you in that as well is that we have blanket accountability just for you completing the assignments, like all the assignments for a particular week in the boot camp. But there's a lot to do. Like, you're going to be really busy if you're committed to that. Okay. So you commit to that, you'll know whether you're complete or not. You need to be accountable for it the following week. And half the assignments you ain't going to do perfect. Like, you do some of them perfect, but there's just not enough hours in the day to do. I gave you a lot of assignments in these weeks to do, and they're all important tasks. Like, I didn't offer anything that's like, yeah, that's optional. You don't need to do that to start your business. It's if you want to start coaching, high caliber coaching code assignments, those are the assignments. If you want to start your business, Quickstart coaching code assignments in the boot camp, those are the assignments. You just do them. Do all of them, okay? And none of them are optional. So in order to do those perfectly, it would take weeks and weeks and weeks, and you only got a week to get them done. So realistically, you're not going to be able to do them perfectly. It forces you into completion versus perfection. And for some of you, you're so not committed to completion and you are so addicted to the lie of perfection because you've lied to yourself for long enough. I'm going to call it what it is, because we don't want to take it easy on that in here, so that we don't let it slide. You've been so stuck in that story. The only way you're going to get out of it is that we drag you, possibly kicking and screaming, into completion. Accountability is where that's at. So get into the accountability. If that's you, the accountability is for you, and you're going to hate it. I mean, you will, I promise you will probably hate accountability, or you're going to hate aspects of it. But that's why you do it, is because you and I both know that if you don't set that accountability up, you're going to go back to your addiction. It's like a coke addict. It's like a heroin addict. It's like, if they have access to it, they're going to do it. If you have access to this lie of perfection, if you let yourself stay in that world, lying to yourself about that, if you don't make it public and don't set up the accountability for yourself, you won't even have mediocrity. You'll have less than that. You'll have nothing. You don't even get to have it. You just get to dream about it. So this is about doing versus dreaming. This is one of the distinctions that my coach just worked with me on, and I literally could see right behind. Yeah, it's right there behind me. Doer versus thinker. This is similar. We're going to talk about that distinction later, but I realized from a session with my coach that it's like I'm just thinking about stuff too much. And I'm committed to completion. I'm completing a lot, but because there's so much thinking going on and I'm like smart about that and I like to think about it, that's my strong suit, not doing. It's actually stopping me from levels of completion that I could actually achieve if only I got the doer in me versus the thinker, which I've already mastered. So we'll talk about that later, in orientation week. But that's it for today. Focus on completion, not perfection. Get to the accountability so you hold that standard for yourself, and you can allow us to hold you to that standard when you can't trust yourself, when you're your own worst enemy. You've seen the enemy, and the enemy is us, right? Focus on stats and playing full out checklists. Like actually, even if you're on zero in that, like just you're at zero and report the zeros. Like take the medicine, and and those pieces of the will get you going. So my coaching for you, if this is really a big thing for you, is Monday, the first day of the boot camp. That's the day that this has to alter. So you've got a couple days to just think about stuff and think about how perfect it would be if it just all turned out perfect. But on Monday, that's when you got it. You can't play that game anymore. You got to stop that game so you can start playing this game of completion and just start completing things. And use everything we've got. Use our coaches, use the accountability, use the stats reporting, the playful out checklist, and our coaching sessions that we're going to have together to support that in happening. So I will talk to you tomorrow in T-4 days before the boot camp starts. Focus on completion versus perfection, playful out, and I will see you then. Take care until then, guys.